Hello again, everyone. Today I'll be talking about Deepcool, a brand which is mostly known for its cooling products. We've previously covered coolers like the AK620 on the channel, and I've personally used their AS500 cooler and some of their AIOs in the past. The Castle 280 is currently being used for my CPU test bench, so that's how much you know I stand behind the company. Just as a quick aside, for those who are really not interested in mouse or peripheral videos, I promise you there are some more longer forms and analytical videos coming out soon. In the next week or so, you should see a review on the 6600 XT from ASRock, which has gone down quite a bit in pricing. Then I'll be working on some Alder Lake content while I wait on the 5800X 3D from AMD. But today we're going to be taking a look at Deepcool's peripheral offerings with a dive into mechanical keyboards and one of their wireless gaming mice, the MG510 gaming mouse and the KG722 keyboard. So the keyboard is a 65% mechanical keyboard that is priced at $79.99, uses Gatoron red switches, though there will be blue and brown switches available by the time you're watching this. It uses a fingerprinted front ABS plastic keycaps with a full ABS plastic body and an aluminum plate for stability and rigidity. It has a 1000 Hz polling rate and a 12 millisecond response rate. It comes in at 12 by 3 by 1.5 inches. The box packs a detachable braided USB A to C cable, as well as a soft cover and a keycap removal tool. As for the mouse, the MG510 is a mouse that uses a PAW 3370 optical sensor that goes up to 19,000 dpi. It uses Omron switches that are rated up to 20 million clicks, has a 700 milliamp hour battery, and up to a 1000 Hz polling rate. It's also a medium-sized mouse coming in at just under 3 ounces and is sized at 2.8 by 2.5 and 1.5 inches. The metric sizes will be shown on the screen again. The mouse also features a detachable USB-C cable for charging or to be used in wired mode. You can also use this little bit on the end as a sort of extender for the range. The specs say it's about 30 hours with the RGB lights on, and it seems about as much in use. But let's start with the keyboard. The typing feel on it is quite good, and it's one of the better experiences I've had using Gatoron switches. However, if you do bottom out the keys like I do, you can hear how loud it is when compared to the Asus ROG Strix Scope TKL. You can see how much louder it is. That, however, is a larger keyboard and is quite a bit more expensive. This really isn't the loudest keyboard with red switches I've ever used, but it's also not whisper quiet. The typing feel, once again, is really solid with a very little flex in it. The keyboard itself is pretty rigid for as much plastic it is used for the frame. Also, it's definitely something you could travel with or use with a laptop. At its price of $79, there isn't a lot of options that are close to it that are also 65% keyboards that aren't some brand you've never heard of. The rubber feet on the bottom help stabilize the keyboard, especially if you're like me and tend to pound down on the keys. And perhaps I'm being a little bit too harsh on this keyboard's loudness since there isn't much of an echo, and this tends to be a problem with keyboards in this price bracket or cheaper. Most of those no-name brands I've ever used tend to lack this level of build quality and this really solid typing feel. But I suppose with most of those brands, it's sort of a roll of the dice as to if you'll get something of good quality or not. The KG722 has a full end key rollover, as well as most of all the creature comforts you'd expect from a nice premium keyboard. It also features an extra row of vertical keys, which are delete, page up, page down, and the tilde is swapped from next to escape all the way down the right side. This caused me some issues when typing and took a few days to get used to. Thankfully though, the keys are fully programmable, so if you want to spend the time through the software, you can change them out. And now we'll go over the software. You have a full set of RGB options, though I couldn't get the musical rhythm option to sync with Spotify for some reason. For the macros and the remapping of keys, Deepcool has a surprisingly robust set of options for their freshman effort. I tend not to dive too deep into these, but I found the layers of options fantastic here for those who are so inclined. One of the unfortunate things about this keyboard is the lack of wrist rests or any extra support in height adjustment. This was particularly troublesome for me in using this keyboard, but some users might not mind, and I know adding a wrist rest might be counterproductive in making this portable and saving space. You can also just use another wrist rest from another keyboard as well, or one you could buy on Amazon. The lightweight makes it ideal for packing away and bringing with you for travel, as I suspect many prospective buyers might be college students or someone who will be using these in hotels when traveling. As for the mouse, this is what I'd call a medium-sized mouse and can work well with just about any grip type. It has the Deepcool logo lit up as well as a diffuse strip on the bottom for the RGBs, which pair well with the black color scheme on the top and sides. On the bottom you can see a bit of teal, which goes well with Deepcool's color scheme. You won't see it often, but when you do, it adds a nice touch aesthetically. Skates on the bottom also seem rather solid and have a pretty good feel. There aren't any large gaps in this mouse, and it generally seems to also have a pretty solid build quality. One of the things I didn't like was the default RGB functionality is changed via the middle button instead of it changing the DPI. This, though, can be changed in software, which is similar to the keyboard, but a different program, unfortunately. Now, keep in mind that you can program the buttons in the software as well, and your DPI levels, polling rate, and swap between 3 other profiles. Also included is you can change your mouse sensitivity, scrolling speed, and double-click speed. And finally, you can also set up some macros, but I don't really see much of a purpose in that myself. I generally don't use macros for my mouse. You can change the DPI from the button underneath the mouse, but for someone like me who might change on the fly during different FPSs or in different situations, this is somewhat inconvenient. In use as a gaming mouse, I've had very little bad to say about it. It is a little heavier than the Cooler Master MM711 that I've been using, but that's to be expected in a wireless mouse. For pricing, the MG510 sits at about $80, and the keyboard also sits at about $80. So, with a wireless mouse, the features that it's included is a pretty good value, and it competes directly with the glorious Model O wireless. Frankly, I was impressed in the month or so that I ended up using it, but I'll probably switch back to my M111 in a few days. Though, that being said, I'll probably keep this as a secondary mouse for my test bench. As for the KG722, I've had nothing but positive experience with it. The typing feel to me isn't as good as some of the more premium keyboards that I've been using, but it's a solid board in its own right. It absolutely runs circles around some of the more affordable full-size keyboards from brands like Corsair that come in at similar or slightly lower price points. I mean, this is another product I'll probably keep around for my test bench. The smaller size helps quite a bit. Now, I probably wouldn't go for this as my primary keyboard, but it feels fantastic to type on. And for those who can cut almost half their keyboard down, you should be quite impressed at its overall price and quality. Overall, I was very impressed with Deepcool's peripheral build quality and the components used. So I give a strong recommendation to both of these if you are so inclined to be looking for either a wireless mouse or a 65% keyboard. Thanks for watching, everyone, and make sure to like, sub, and check out our merch store, as well as join our Patreon to get in our private Discord and bother me or Donnie about whatever you necessarily want within reason.